Okay, now we're talking to Barbara about approaches to MS4. How do you suggest that centres approach the teaching of MS4?
Well, the starting point is obviously to select 3 industries and then select 3 appropriate texts for each of those industries.
What advice would you give about selecting 3 texts?
Well, the specification states that 2 of the 3 texts have to be contemporary. By that we mean that came out within the last 5 years, and 1 of them must be British. Contrasting texts seem to work best. So, for example, if you were teaching something like television, appropriate texts might be Silk, the new BBC One drama, a Channel 4 documentary such as Beauty and the Beast, and something like CSI New York from Channel 5, because they allow students to demonstrate their knowledge of key aspects of the industry.
So is that the same for each industry?
Well, yes, it is, except that it's important to remember that for advertising, texts mean campaigns and not single adverts. It's not really appropriate just to teach 3 single adverts. It needs to be expanded a little bit further than that.
How many would you expect them to look at?
We would suggest that students focused on 3 to 4 adverts within a specific campaign when they come to their responses within the exams. However, it's most likely that they will have looked at more when they're looking at a campaign in class. For example, in my own centre we teach Louis Vuitton and we look specifically at their Journeys campaign. That campaign has got 9 adverts within it. So the students are familiar with all 9 adverts, but they have individually selected 3 of the adverts within the campaign to focus their responses on.
What constitutes a text for the music industry?
That's a very good question. In the music industry, it's an artist or a band. So, for example, 3 appropriate texts within the music industry would be Snow Patrol, Lady Gaga and Tiny Temper. And when you're looking at them, we would expect you to look at the way that they are represented, the way that they use different media text. So, for example, a music video, the music press, a CD cover, and their website.
Once texts have been selected, how would you approach the teaching of a specific industry?
First of all, teachers need to balance the teaching of text, industry, audience. What we've noticed in some of the exam responses that we've had is that students are very, very good on responding to areas of text, genre, narrative and representation, and they're perhaps less well prepared for areas of industry and audience in relation to their texts. We've also found occasionally that some students seem to have been geared by centres to answer specific questions using a particular industry. So, for example, an entire centre might use film for section A, they might use television for industry, and they might use advertising for audience. What we found there is that this limits the responses that students are able to make. It also limits their choices in responding to questions on the paper. So we would seriously recommend that that is not something that they do, and that for each of the texts and the industries being studied, they do a complete overview of text, industry and audience.